We did. Okay. We also want to look at pollution damage. We know that there's a $10K cap on pollution damage for a GP. The policy covers up to $10,000 for the pollutants, even if there's discharge, seepage, migration, or any release of these pollutants. Testing is not covered, but like the dwelling form, if it's required by law and we can document that this ordinance was in place at the time of the loss, it can be included for testing, but we got to have that documentation. The amount is $10,000 on a general property policy. There is no maximum amount for pollutants on an RC BAP or a dwelling up to the limit of liability, but a general property does have a $10,000 cap. We've got this assisted living facility. During the month of October, after Hurricane Harvey, they received a bill for $184,000 to protect this facility during the time that repairs were being made. We know under exclusions that any additional expenses incurred while the building is being repaired or is unable to be occupied is excluded. So this $184,000 bill, no portion of this could be considered by the adjuster. General property policies are never paid at replacement cost. Please do not include an RC proof of loss. They are always ACV. There's no instance when they will be replacement cost. It's a critical error to have a final report page that shows a replacement cost amount. This is simply a setting that you have off in your estimate. So anytime you have a general property, you would set this to actual cash value. In this instance, this claim was paid in error by a clerk at the carrier during one of the heavier periods of a storm. So we've got a large influx of claims. The claims are being paid left and right. The carrier will employ a clerk to simply pay claims based off a final report page. So our adjuster in this instance had an estimate that was incorrect. He did not take an RC proof. However, he did have a final report page that reflected an RC amount. This replacement cost amount was issued to the insured and they cashed the check. And at that point, not only is it a critical error, we have to try and recoup the funds, and we got to try and look for the money back. This is a $12,000 error, and I'm not sure the outcome of this, but I know that the carrier, at the end of the day, got dinged by FEMA on an audit. FEMA said, you paid this in error. We need $12,000 back. Well, the carrier turned to Colonial and said, Colonial, you recommended this in error. We need $12,000 back. And Doug, as far as I know, went to the adjuster and said, hey, you recommended this in error. What are we going to do about this $12,000? So things roll downhill. Make sure you've got your settings right on your software. You wouldn't have this instance. Never show an RC proof. Never show an amount as payable for replacement cost on a general property. This is very important. Here's required general property documentation. This is for every carrier. Who owns the building? Who owns the business? Who's responsible for maintaining the aspects of the building? Many times that's the tenant. Where's the lease? We need a detailed lease showing all the properties and the personnel involved. If there's an umbrella policy, we need to know that. If there's other insurance, we need to know that there's other insurance. We need to look at lien holders for the building and for the contents. Who owns the machinery, the equipment, the inventory, the stock, the personal property? We've got to go over all those things. All these have to be documented. The relationships between any of the parties have to be included, have to be explained. Many times they can be confusing. You can have so much documentation. We need to put it all together to the best of our ability and send it to the carrier, but we need to do that before we take a proof of loss. And certainly before we take an advance, we have to show insurable interest. Do not bother to send an advance along with your prelim unless you have shown an insurable interest. Show us that the named insured has an insurable interest, has a documented loss, and we will be able to cover any advance, much less the final report. Very important. If you have questions on this, please let us know ahead of time. Please don't get into a situation where we believe we have a payable claim and it turns out after the fact that we did not because we don't have an insurable interest or we at least don't have it documented. Allow us to help you up front to the extent that we can. If it's more involved than our office is able to handle, we're going to send that to the carrier. We're going to let underwriting get involved. They might need things that we're not even sure to ask for. So bring us all into the loop, but let the insured know upon the first call, I need to see ownership for the business. If you don't own the business, I need to see ownership for the building. If you don't own the building, let's see who does own the building and show me your relationship to that entity. Very important.